What about weight?
The amount of weight that you choose should fall into two categories, or two kind of clearance variables to make sure it goes through. One is, can you lift it with good technique between 5 and 30 times in one set? And two, is that exhibition of your lifting at least within 3 reps-ish of failure? Because people will say, like, you give someone 10-pound dumbbells that can lift the 30s, and they do 5, and they put it down. They're like, hypertrophy, I hit 5. Like, yep, but the caveat there is that you have to challenge the muscle. So the weight you end up using is whatever weight gets you within 5 to 30 reps range, close to failure. And you warm up to find that out. And it's different for everyone. But the idea that you got to go ultra heavy to grow is true, but it's not the only true thing. You can also grow from light, high rep shit. You just have to push it close to failure.
Why not to failure?
To failure is a totally fine thing as well. There are downsides of going to failure all the time. It seems that as you get closer to failure, the amount of stimulus per set rises. So if you have a set where you stop at 2 reps shy of failure, and another person has a set where they stop just at failure, or someone has to drag the barbell off of them, the person who went to failure is going to grow more muscle. That's a good thing, but it's by a small margin, maybe just several % more growth. The downside is training to failure generates a lot more fatigue. Probably not a few % more, maybe a few dozen % more, which is a big deal. If you're going to use a program which mostly has you do 3 or 2 or 1 rep shy of failure, you'll get great stimulus and you'll be able to recover from lots of sets over the course of weeks and months, which means you'll get a great stimulus and a great hypertrophy result. If you insist on going to failure even beyond in your sets, you can get very good results, but you have to reduce the total volume of your training because the amount of fatigue you accumulate is going to be rapid. It's going to happen fast. So have you ever heard of like HIIT training, Mike Mentzer, high intensity training, HIT? Mike Mentzer and those folks were fans of going to failure and beyond with drop sets and crazy shit like that. They got really good results, but they don't do very many sets. A few sets per muscle per workout's all they do, because they realized we can't recover from this. You can recover from more if you stay a little shy of failure. My suspicion is that if you want the best overall muscle growth and you have all the time in the world to train, that somewhere between 3 and 1 rep in reserve on average for a program is a really good idea.
What about sets?
Sets are influenced by a few things. One of the big ones is your proximity to failure. So what I'm going to say next about how many sets you should do is, if you go close to failure all the time, you do on the lower end of this range. At least start there. If you do, 2 or 3 reps in reserve, you can be on the higher end of this range. A couple ways to think about sets. There's sets per week and there's sets per session. I like to think of per muscle group per session. Some people get overly obsessed about how many sets do I need to do per exercise. There is an answer to that question, but it's much more interesting to talk about per muscle group, because you can train your chest with 3 exercises and do 2 sets each, or you can train it with 2 exercises and do 3 sets each. The total amount of working sets is by far the biggest determinant of how much muscle you're going to grow per session. So in a session, theoretically, you can do anywhere from 1 set for your muscle, just 1 set of curls and leave. And as a beginner especially, you'll get some robust gains. Or as someone who's more advanced, if you train your biceps every single day, just 1 or 2 sets of curls ends up being a lot of weekly volume and plenty of stimulus, and that's a totally fine way to grow. On the other end, in the session, you can do as many as 12 to 15 sets for the biceps or for the chest. The downside there is, on the higher ends of that spectrum, you are reaching into what's called junk volume, where, you're training, but your nervous system is so tired, it's not even recruiting as many of the muscle fibers as you want anymore. It's like it's taken the day off and you're just kind of robotically moving through. That 30 rep cutoff, theoretical, very rough cutoff of anything lighter than your 30 rep max probably won't grow as much muscle. That's always and everywhere your fresh 30 rep max. So if you're on exercise number 5 for your pecs, you're doing cable flies with 100 pounds for sets of 15, even if to failure, that is to failure as we observe it externally.
With this pre-fatigue.
But oh my God. And at that point, your nervous system is fucking checked out. A lot of your faster twitch muscle fibers, the ones that grow the most, they're not even fucking contracting anymore. And you look at 100 pounds and someone's like, how many reps did you do? 15. How many could you have done if you were fresh? Like, I don't know, 40? Well, that's 10 away from 30. That already is starting to get junky. It's just the stimulus isn't worth the fatigue anymore. A couple of studies have been done, actually more than a few, and a lot of good meta-analytic data has been synthesized, probably some of the best of which is by a gentleman named James Krieger, who has a lit review, the Weightology lit review. I sign up for it. I pay real money for it. My own money, Chris. You know how painful that is to part with my own money? And he has hinted at the fact that close to the best answer, on average, huge caveat on average, is something like 5 to 8 working sets per muscle per session. So if you're training your biceps and you do 3 sets per session, totally cool. You just have to do more sessions per week. If you're doing something like 9 sets for biceps, again, totally cool. You just have to train them less frequently so they can recover for a lot of 9 sets of work. But if you're doing 15 working sets for just your biceps in one session, the literature would say that's not optimal. And the reasoning would be like your last 5 sets are just a gigantic fucking waste of your time. You're cashed out. It's like frying an egg after it's already fried. It just gets more burnt and nothing good happens to it. On the other hand, if you're doing just 1 or 2 sets for biceps per session, you had better be doing a lot of sessions over the week. And if you're only training once or twice for biceps, you'd say, look, man, your muscles could take more of a hit, which brings me to my next point. How do you determine if you're doing the right amount of volume for you? And I would actually keep this relatively simple. However many sessions you have per muscle in a week, which I'm sure we'll get to how many sessions is a good idea. Let's just say it's 2. Let's say you train your chest on Monday, you train chest again on Thursday. If after Monday's workout, let's say you're doing 3 sets of chest, by Tuesday evening, you're like not sore, you're not tired, you're fucking ready to go, your strength is as high as it'll ever be. Someone could ask the theoretical question of why the fuck are you waiting Wednesday as a whole day to just go Thursday? You could have already hit it again. So if you're well beyond recovered, next Monday, you can do 4 sets or 5 sets for chest to get you close to just barely recovered for next Thursday. If you're just barely recovered, let's say Wednesday, you're still a little tight, a little sore, a little feeling, and Thursday morning, you're really good to go. Perfect.
Is that MRV?
Yeah. So if you go over that value, you might have exceeded your MRV. Well, there's more technical way to diagnose that maximum recoverable volume, but a kind of way to make sure you're not excessively over it is to make sure you're healed on time. But if you're healed too early, then you could be at your minimum effective volume or hidden volume. You think you're growing, but you're really doing so few sets that you're not accomplishing a whole lot. So the point is to challenge your body such that it is recovering until, a day or several hours before you hit it again. If you do 8 sets of chest on Monday, by the time Thursday rolls around, you're still sort of a touch and you're weaker than usual. You're not going to get as robust of a stimulus. And thus, you next time shouldn't do 8 sets. Maybe you should do 6. So by adjusting the number of sets week over week for any given muscle to challenge yourself to recover close to just on time for the next time you hit it, not too far back, definitely not under recovered, you end up auto-regulating yourself into probably close to your ideal volume for how much muscle you can gain.
How long do you rest in between sets?
Yes. Oh, in between actual sets as you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a unique take on this. You might not hear it in a lot of other places. It's just 1 minute and it's the right answer for everyone. Next question. No, wait, not it. A lot of answers you'll get on the internet from folks that also know what they're talking about is some number of minutes. And I understand that answer because it's very usable. Let's say 2 to 5 minutes or something like that. The problem is that is not a theoretically based answer. It's just a notional answer. Like, here's the number. You're not really sure why. And there are many exceptions. For example, if you train your calves and calf raises, are you telling me I need to rest 5 fucking minutes after my calves? 10 seconds after, I don't even feel lactic acid anymore. I'm fucking totally good to go. So we do at RP is we have a 4-factor checklist model where if you can checklist 4 things after your last set is over, you can begin your next set as soon as those checklist items are checked. You can wait longer and there may be some small upsides to it, but someone could say if you wait much longer, you're just kind of wasting time. So here are the checklists. Number 1, your cardio can't be a limiting factor. So if you just did a set of squats and you turn to your training partner, you're like, should I do another set? No, because then what's going to stop you in your set of squats is you can't breathe. It's not your local quad musculature that's being brought close to failure. And remember, the local musculature brought close to failure is the way we get the most robust gains. That's the mechanism by which we grow. So that's no good. So wait until you're back to at least normal-ish breathing. That's checklist one. Another one is kind of your nervous system strength, which means, do you feel strong? Like in here, not in the pecs, in the heart, which we all know emotion comes from the heart. No, wait, it's the brain. If you're fucking like, yeah, let's fucking do this, you're ready. If you still feel like curved up in a ball and defeated, how are you going to push it close to failure in the next set? You're not. Suck. So number one, cardiovascular system needs to be mostly recovered. Number two, you need to have your neural strength back. Like you need to be like, yeah, fucking let's do this. The second to last one is the synergists need to no longer be a limiting factor. For example, in the squat, you can say, okay, after 3 minutes, I'm breathing normal. I feel fucking strong again. And my quads feel like we're ready to go, but my lower back is still cramping, still has lactic acid, it's still weak. If you do another work set, what do you think is going to be the limiting point? It's going to be your lower back, which means your quads are like, did anything happen? Did we just try? Or what the fuck went on? If your lower back has 5 good reps in it, but your quads have 10 good reps in them, it doesn't matter if you tell yourself on 1 rep in reserve. You're 6 reps in reserve for the quads, for the muscle that matters. So the synergists have to be good to go. Another example is forearms and the lat pull down. If your forearms are still throbbing and you can't grip anything, it's not time to do lat pull downs again. You got to fucking rest out, even if your lats feel quite good. And that last 4-factor model checklist is, does the target muscle have enough recovery in it for it to be able to do at least another 5 repetitions? Because any set less than 5 reps can be hypertrophic for sure, but not the most efficient use of your time because you're not sufficiently recovered. So let me give you 2 extreme examples. One is calf raises, just on a seated calf machine, not the one where your legs are bent, but the one where your legs are straight. Bent leg calf raises actually mostly hit the soleus muscle, which is deep to the gastroc. It's not the cool big diamond shaped one. It just sucks. Calf raises. Cardio. 3 seconds later, you're breathing normally. You might have been breathing normally the whole time. Check. When do you feel strong again? Could be 5 or 10 seconds later. Yeah, my calves feel fine. Synergists. There are no synergists. The thing starts at your hips and goes down. There's no synergist, so that auto checks itself. And then how long until I'm not feeling like my calves are full of lactic acid? Oh, maybe 5 or 10 seconds. So there is a world in which 10 seconds between sets is the right amount or a correct amount of time to rest for calves. Can you rest longer? Sure, no big deal. But you may be taking incrementally, exponentially more time for linearly better gains, which generally is just like, do another set. And someone's like, well, if I do 5 sets where I rest longer, I get just as much growth as if I do 7 sets where I rest shorter. Yeah, but the rest longer takes you 8 total minutes to train, and the rest shorter takes you 3 total minutes. Why don't you just do 2 extra sets? You'll be 4 versus 8 minutes wise and get the same hypertrophy. So if a muscle's fucking pretty recovered and you're pretty good to go, I say just go again. And if you need more stimulus, just add more sets. So on calf raises, it could be a correct answer to say it's 10 seconds rest. 4-factor model, all checked out. On squats for sets of 15. Holy fuck. I've rested. I did this one thing once, which is on YouTube somewhere, where I did 405 pounds, 4 plates in the squat for 5 sets of 10. And I rested for something like 7 to 10 minutes between each set. I also, after set 3 and 4 and 5, I threw up independently after each one of those sets. So it's going to take some time. And honestly, it was 4-factor model based, even though I didn't know at the time. I came up with that shit later. But like, it took me 4 minutes to stop breathing hard. It took me another several minutes for my fucking lower back to be like, okay, I'm healed enough. So very different answers, but generally the most simple way I can condense this whole conversation, if you're ready to go again, if everything's fucking working and you feel strong, go. If you're not ready, if you're breathing hard, if you still feel weak, if your muscles are still cramping, you have to rest. No matter what you saw on the internet, 1 to 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, those are all heuristic ideas. This is a theoretical basis that's a bit more sound.